Now on Beyond Fame. We go beyond the lights and cameras of celebrity mothers and their children as they share life behind the lens. Sizzling legend Eartha Kitt on her devastating childhood.
You're thrown helter-skelter from one family to the other because you're used as a work mule.
Hollywood ingenue Rosario Dawson with her mom on Love.
We're wearing our affection for each other out in the open.
One of Josephine Baker's kids reveals the secrets of the clan.
Her intentions were good, but the result was traumatizing.
And for the first time, acclaimed singer Phoebe Snow shares her heartfelt struggles.
I'm already crying. Look, see what you did to me here. Yeah, I miss my mother a lot.
It's all coming your way on Beyond Fame.
Welcome to Beyond Fame, a series of specials about the personal trials and tribulations of American personalities. I'm your host, Jim Watkins. Today, we're going to be looking at some very special relationships between mothers and their children. And we begin with the still electrifying Eartha Kitt. From explosive performances on Broadway and film to her sensual role as Catwoman on TV's Batman, Eartha Kitt has been entertaining audiences for over 50 years. But underneath all the glitz and glamour were the lasting memories of a scarred childhood and the wish for a family of her own. I had the chance to sit down with Eartha and her daughter, Kit Shapiro, and found out that despite fame, family is the true measure of success. What was your life like in its early years in terms of the family and the parenting
there was no
you didn't
family.
have?
I'm an orphan. Everybody was giving me away because I'm not the right color. You're not black enough, you're not white enough, and on top of all of that, you're illegitimate. Nobody knows who your father is. We doubt whether the woman who claimed that she's your mother is your mother. So you're thrown helter-skelter from one family to the other because you're used as a work mule. And you talk about Cinderella time, Since you don't know any better, you think that's the way your particular life is supposed to be.
Raised on a cotton farm by a foster family in South Carolina, Eartha eventually headed north in 1936 to live with an aunt in Harlem.
The woman who had me down south, when she died, they brought me up to New York. And she was beating me to such an extent that I thought that was supposed to be the right thing to do too, because she was a loner. She didn't have any family as I could see, but she did have boyfriends. And one day she picked up the piano stool and was about to come down over my head with it. Well, I did do something rather bad. I was supposed to go to piano lessons.
Well, so you had it coming then, I guess. That's the standard punishment. You're not going to piano lessons. Despite such abuse and racial barriers, Eartha defied the odds and went on to success on the stage and screen. It was her brief marriage to William McDonald that produced her only child, Kit. Since you were so famous during these years, what role did being a celebrity play in the relationship with Kit?
I don't think it ever interfered so strongly between my daughter and myself. But men, for instance, being whom I am, and considered very beautiful and sexy and sensuous and whatever they want to call you, the men always wanted to lay me down, but they didn't want to pick me up. And I suppose that's why until this day I don't have a man in my life, but that's why I say thank God I've got Kit, because that's what I really wanted. And that's why I got married, because I wanted her. But when men did come into my life along the way as she was growing up, she was so protective of me that nobody stayed.
What she's talking about.
She was tougher than any security guard you could have hired.
I don't know how it got there. So I kicked somebody in the shins. I mean,
That's a million shells she kicked in the chin. Leave my mother alone. It was always that kind of thing. So as time went on, I realized that was not, a relationship between me and a man was not going to work as long as my daughter objected to it.
Thanks to me.
And I thought my daughter was much more important in my life than having a man that may be here today and gone tomorrow. So I don't regret that.
Kit, when you were growing up, you knew that your mother had had a very difficult childhood herself. Did you think that it was something that was going to affect your childhood?
I think there's a part of me that took on her pain And when I would hear stories, and she would tell them in an interview or they would be recounted to me, I felt the intensity almost as if I had gone through that. I didn't want her to have that, to ever experience that kind of pain. So our roles, mother-daughter, often switched off. There were many times where I would be trying to mother. Not sure that was really proper or not, or really wanted or not, but that I, almost took on this role as feeling that, I need to take care of her.
Do you have any recollections of that nature? Or does that ring true with you?
Oh yes, it was, and it was wonderful because afterwards, even though I didn't maybe say anything at the time, because I don't believe in arguing. If she said something to me that hurt me, I wouldn't say anything. I would leave it alone and analyze the reasons why she said that to me. And then everything would cool down and everything would be okay.
And Eartha admits that her fame has allowed her to become a good mother.
Every time I walk out on the stage, I'm so enamored of the fact that somebody wants me. That can you imagine if your daughter wants you and she didn't run away and never came back, you know what I mean? See, we're together.
Well, you didn't charge her a cover charge either, so that was
So the
part
love
of
that the people were giving me is I can share that because I know what that feeling is, and I know what that feeling is that I want. And it's a genuine love. It's not something you cannot fake.
I first interviewed them about 7 years ago, and over those years, I've only seen the bond between Eartha and Kit grow stronger. Another strong woman is Eileen Ford. In 1946, she and her husband started the Ford modeling agency, literally out of their garage. It evolved into one of the world's most successful agencies. Today, a new generation is running the family business.
I was 24 and he was 22, and we started in my father's house, 142 Lexington Avenue. You know, when you're young like that, you don't think about the future. Everything is today. And we needed money, and so I took bookings until our first child was born. Then a while later, Bill came, and then Katie, and then Lacey. So all we were worried about was paying the obstetrician and the baby nurse and things like that. We never looked to the future.
But what has evolved is one of the most successful modeling agencies in the world. Along the way, they created a true family-owned business.
Growing up in our household was the most fun household that I knew. We had models who were there in and out and photographers, and really it was a form of entertainment.
Eileen also adopted her models. Young ingenues like Jerry Hall, Renee Russo, and Christy Turlington moved in for stretches at a time, but there were rules to follow.
When they would go out at night, I would say, you be home by this time at night.
And they learned to hide their clothes down in the basement, and they would wear nightgowns going down, hide their clothes.
Turlington did that. Christy Turlington, she'd know. I'd say, where are you going? She'd say, oh, I'm going down to do some laundry. Yeah. And then she knew we'd be asleep by the time she came up. And she'd dress down there. She'd keep her clothes in the oven. And then she'd go out on a date at a perfectly good time and come home.
Yet Eileen always found time for her own kids.
Outsiders think, oh, you were missing your mother. We weren't missing our mother. Our mother was there, and so were some other people. It was fun.
In 1995, the torch was passed when Katie became president and CEO of Ford Models, Inc., and eventually put her own stamp on the company. In the past 9 years, the agency has opened offices around the world, but she keeps her parents' ideals ever present.
My parents have passed on a lot of different values that I pass on to my children, and one is to be a good person, and another is to have passion about what you do, to love what you do. So I hope that I teach them the passion and love and caring that my parents have taught me.
Like, some girl came up to us one time, she was like, oh, hi, how you doing? And I was like, hello. She goes, so, is that your girlfriend? And she was like, goes, no, that's my mom. She goes, you see, I told you they was family.
Welcome back.
In the same way that 1940 screen legend Lana Turner was discovered in a Hollywood drugstore, actress Rosario Dawson was first noticed on the streets of New York. From the acclaimed docudrama Kids, she went on to star in such Hollywood hits as Men in Black 2 and Josie and the Pussycats. Today, she's one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors, and through it all, she maintains a strong bond with her mother.
We're wearing our affection for each other out in the open, and you know, it's nice because I don't know, it feels great for me because I'm always traveling and away and far from family or friends, not being able to have that time. So I probably milk it for all it's worth. So people just look at me being like clinging to her like I'm desperate. They're like, get a room, and I'm like, no, it's my mom.
How does this middle-aged chick lift this gorgeous chick? You know, it's like, isn't that Rosario Dawson? Like some girl came up to us one time and she was like, oh hi, how you doing? And I was like, hello. She goes, so is that your girlfriend? And Rosario goes, no, that's my mom. She goes, you see, I told you they was family.
But Isabel also took her role as a parent seriously.
I was a teen mom. I had Rosario when I was 17 years old. So, or I should say 17 years young. And so there was a lot that I missed out on because I was a parent at such a young age. And since I was a parent, I decided that I was going to be the best parent I could be.
And she exposed Rosario to the world around her.
I had all these memories of just like the two of us sitting down and reading books and trading them. And I'm like, you know, 11 years old and reading Clan of the Cave Bear, going to school being like, you should really hear this is steamy, you know? And I'm like reading these 500-page novels.
At 15, Rosario was discovered on their sidewalk by director Larry Clark. She went on to star in a string of Hollywood films, but her relationship with her mom is still stronger than ever.
We'll be at some photo shoot and she'll come and hang out. And she's talking to chatting everybody up, and they've got my size wrong or something like that, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, the stuff is kind of making me pop out because it's too small. And, you know, mom's like, why don't you just go like this? Just don't even wear anything. She doesn't feel comfortable with the clothes. Just go like that.
She's hot.
Or how about,
I did that.
Or just get a jacket. Just get a jacket like that. And I'm like, Mom. And of course, everyone's like, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Rosario, take off your clothes. And Mom like, whose side are you on? And she's like, be beautiful. You're beautiful. Oh, I did that. I'm like,
I feel so bad for everybody because I get, especially the guys, because I get to see her naked all the time, and it's like no big deal.
Don't say it like that. Yeah, of course, I'd hope
She's
not.
my daughter, you know what I mean? So they're like, you get to see her naked?
Later this year, Rosario will star in Oliver Stone's much-anticipated Alexander, a film about the adventures of Alexander the Great. We are sure to hear much, much more about this New York native. And now, we're going to take a look at the life of the one and only Josephine Baker. In the 1920s, she was the toast of Paris. Men lusted after her, yet she was rejected by her parents and even her own country. In this exclusive interview, Jean-Claude Baker, an adopted son of sorts, reveals how good intentions turn cruel.
When she was a little girl in Saint Louis, she would take care of children of white people. But in those days, she could not kiss those children because they were white and she was black. If the mother of the children would see that, she would have been fired right away. And that's why Josephine was a very angry, bitter person towards society. She said, I didn't choose, I was born black.
Josephine Baker's love of children would continue throughout her life. In her later years, she had a dream.
It's quite ironic, since if you believe in God or in the human race, she could not bear children. So she went above that and became the universal mother and gather, adopt, kidnap, bought certain children all over the world.
For the first time ever, Jean-Claude Baker, one of those children, reveals the truth behind the brotherhood.
Let's face it, when she had 8, 9 children and 20 nurses and people, she had to go away for 6 months to make money, to pay for the nurse, to pay for the children, and to pay for the 120 people working in the Chateau of Les Milandes, which in her very artistic mind, she had called the capital of universal brotherhood. She would come back, and my brother and sisters didn't recognize Josephine. Her intentions were good, but the result was traumatizing. So it's very difficult to analyze the dream of universal brotherhood which Josephine Baker created.
But what effect did it have on Jean-Claude as a person?
That's a very good question, which I'm going to answer for the first time. Since she passed away in '73, I black out. I was hurt. I black out everything. I didn't want my anger to come out. I didn't want my love to come out. I didn't want the consequence to come out. That's it. And that's the book. And suddenly when I became 60, I woke up one morning and I didn't have any more that crushing, whatever it is, in my heart, in my body. So today I think I can talk a little bit more openly, you see what I mean? And I have to live now.
In 1993, Jean-Claude wrote the biography, Josephine, The Hungry Heart. About 10 years ago, he established Chez Josephine, a cozy restaurant in New York, to pay homage to the great entertainer and the woman he calls Mom.
I decided to create that little shrine to the Josephine I love, and everything here you have is only Josephine from the 20s, 30s. And it's really a kind of magic, and I do believe me, that her spirit is here. And when she's not happy with me, I know what's happened, not a customer.
The most violent thing that I've ever seen in my whole life, with all the violence that is inherent in this life, was my daughter's birth. And I've never said that anywhere before.
Welcome back.
Now we catch up with Phoebe Snow, who in the 1970s was one of many struggling artists in New York's Greenwich Village, singing at clubs like the Bitter End. Then, at the age of 20, she had her first hit, Poetry Man. But success turned sour. Here's Phoebe Snow after all these years.
There was a freighting line through the Erie-Lackawanna Railroad that had the name Phoebe Snow. So I used to say, when I grow up, I'm going to be Phoebe Snow.
But Phoebe Laub, unlike that train, wasn't sure where her path would lead her.
When I was like in high school and I tried to go to college for a couple of years, and they did not know what to do with me. My mother was like, but I know you can do something. My mother and I were very close. We really loved each other. So, but I was a pain in the ass too.
Phoebe loved music, but was afraid.
I always had mixed feelings about being a singer, like, for a living, because I was really shy. Nobody believes this now, but I was so introverted. I was like so shy. I said, I'm never ever going to be able to get up in front of an audience. I'll pass out from fear. So I loved singing, and I loved to sing in little private places, you know, where nobody could hear me. But my first boyfriend talked me into it. Anything for boyfriends, you know how that is.
At 17, she was discovered at a club in New York, signed to a record deal, and Phoebe Snow was born. Her first record debuted in 1974 with a little single called Poetry Man.
I had been on tour with Jackson Browne. I'm just getting ready to go on. I'm strapping my guitar on, and he goes, "Hi, my name is Fred Smith," from the label. And he holds up a piece of paper and it says, "Single, number something with a bullet. Album, number 3 with a bullet," or something like that. And he just hands it to me, and I go, "What's a bullet?" I didn't even know what he was talking about. And somebody else who was standing in the wings with me goes, "You've got a hit album." I said, "What?" I went from being totally just a kid from New Jersey to being on a treadmill. Well, now you have to be everywhere. You have to be in 3 places at once. And you better take your B12 supplements, because you're going to be tired.
At the end of the tour, Phoebe got another surprise.
Well, I knew I didn't feel well, you know, in the morning. But I had been told by, I think, 2 or 3 different doctors that I would never be able to conceive a child. Never listen to them when they tell you that. So, talk about the album being a surprise. I had a few surprises that year.
As with everything in life, Phoebe turned to her best friend, her mother, who welcomed the news of her first grandchild.
Oh, yeah. She was so happy. But then there was another bad surprise. She got sick. And right around the same time as I found out I was pregnant, she was diagnosed with cancer. And this would be her first grandchild. I've actually never really talked about this, but they told my father that she had just a few months. She was terminal. And I went home to my mother. I didn't know. I didn't know my mother was sick because that was what she wanted. She did not want anyone but my father to know that she had been diagnosed. And she didn't even know that she was metastatic or terminal. She didn't know what he had been told. So I went home to tell her I was pregnant. She was thinking she might not even live to see the kid, the grandchild.
And while Phoebe coped with the pressures of her blossoming music career and her mother's illness, another tragedy came her way.
The most violent thing that I've ever seen in my whole life, with all the violence that is inherent in this life, was my daughter's birth. And I've never said that anywhere before. It was barbaric. And it was an accident, but it was just horrible. She became brain damaged. So here was my mother, and here was my daughter, and here's poetry, man. And I'm like, yeah, I think I must have gone into a profound state of shock.
But Phoebe remembers the first time she saw her baby daughter, Valerie.
I didn't see her until 2 days after she was born. I'd never seen an intensive care unit. I actually had hardly ever seen a hospital. So they brought me up there, and the minute I saw her, it was like bonding, huge. I said, this is it. And they said if she survived, she would be in a very low functioning state, and there was a facility that they had in mind that she should be transferred to live in. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew she was gonna, the minute that all those little machines were unhooked, she was coming home. I never would have done anything different. Never.
Despite all the tragedy around her, Phoebe worked nonstop.
I just kept sort of mindlessly showing up until I became so burnt out that I couldn't show up anymore.
Then, at the height of her career, Phoebe stopped the runaway train that her life had become to take care of her child and her mother.
That was a very profound thing that happened with my mother when my mother was on her deathbed and she was in a coma. One of the little private duty nurses in the hospital had put a tiny little transistor radio by her shoulder so it was in her ear, and I came in to, help her and clean things up, and as I walked in the room, Gollywog's Cakewalk was playing, and I got in the bed and put my arms around her. I said, "Mom, Debussy, Debussy." I loved my mother. I love my mother. I'm already crying. Look, see what you did to me here. Yeah, I miss my mother a lot.
Last year, Phoebe went back in the studio to record Natural Wonder, her most personal CD, which includes the track Changed.
Change was meant to be a spiritual catharsis. It was meant to be, that you can recover from the worst kinds of tragedy.
Like the train that bears her name, Phoebe Snow has a courageous spirit of steel. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Beyond Fame.